All right, welcome. We'll begin our work session. We're going to wait to do the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Yeah. All right, Sean, go for it.
Thanks. Thanks.
Oh, hold on. We have everyone here except for Casey. So, okay, go ahead.
So as you know, we met back in May on the accessory buildings ordinance. This came up because there was a big one built in a neighborhood by Ira Allen, as you guys are all aware. And so we did some hearings with Planning Commission, came up with a few concepts. They made a proposal. We reviewed that with council in May. There still was some concerns that were raised, and so we've thought we would have a discussion, a work session to kind of go over that. Originally, the Planning Commission was proposing to keep the rear yard coverage, max coverage for buildings at 30% if they were 1-story or 20% if they were 2-story. And then reduce the height that was allowed within 10 feet to 18 feet. And then for every 1 foot of height would have required 2 foot additional rear yard setback. That's what was presented to the council. A couple of the issues that came up, one of the members of the public was concerned that 18 feet was too low, and that by pushing the building more to the center, you're going to have more dead space behind the building. So those were some of the things that the council talked about. As we've reviewed it again and came back, what we're recommending is to reduce the max coverage to 20% in the rear yard for 1 or 2-story buildings. 20% is still a very large amount, especially when the lots get bigger. 20% you can still do a pretty large structure. We've proposed to increase the height at 10 feet to 24 feet in height to address that issue that we're not creating too much dead space. But we are proposing, if you do want to go above that 24, that you would have to move it 2 feet for every 1 foot of height you do. And then we're also proposing some max heights based on lot size, potentially 30 feet for half acre or less, 35 feet for 1 to 2, or the max at 40 where it is now for 2+ acres. So kind of just open to hear where the council's at on this and what else you would like from us to help move this one across the
Do we have any changes or ideas if the zoning in the backyard is different, like there's a commercial building that's?
Yeah, so we would include an exception for that, like we discussed. Yeah, if you're abutting an industrial or a commercial zone, the additional setback requirements, we could
Okay, so that's a part of that would be part of
have
the
an
verbiage.
exception, yeah.
Sean, how would that apply to the parcel that we spoke of when we had this on our agenda at our last meeting, where that parcel, the gentleman came and spoke about his parcel that abuts a commercial zone on one side but not on another?
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about whatever setback whatever setback is closest to the side that he's putting the building on? Is that what would apply?
Yeah, so I think the way it would apply is if it's a rear yard, the way it would work is you'd have 24 feet, you could do it 10 feet, and then if you were going taller than that, you'd have to move it further into your lot. If your rear yard was abutting an industrial or a commercial zone, we wouldn't require that additional setback.
Even though his side yard is next to a residential?
Yeah, because the side yard would stay at 10 feet as well.
So in that code that we have about the 10-foot setback, it can be construed and read that if it's 10 feet at the 3 feet, because 3 feet is our setback, standard setback for everything 15 feet or lower.
If it's
right?
less than 15, yeah.
But it could, in my opinion, the way the code's written, it could be construed. You and I have visited multiple of these scenarios.
Yeah.
That if it's 10 feet or lower, if it's 15 feet or lower at the 3 feet, then it's approved. But it's overall 15 feet height. If it's 15 feet or higher than 15 feet, then it's got to be 10 feet from the property line.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the code is all the way clear, because I think you can interpret it the other way, the way it's written. And my question is the way we've written the code here, is it for sure cannot be interpreted the same way? Because when you say 24 feet, is it 24 feet within the 10 feet, or is it 24 feet total building height?
Total.
No matter if it's in the 10 feet?
Yeah, well, these are just proposals, so I'll refine it and make
Yeah.
sure that it's clear.
Because when you
to
say
that.
24 feet within 10 feet, then that leads me to believe, well, if I've got an eave here and the gable's another 20 feet away, hey, Sean, I meet the code.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what that other one kind of says. So
Yeah,
I
we
know what
would,
the intent is,
we
but
would write it such that if your building is, at any point is 24 feet tall, you've got to be at that
Yeah.
10 foot.
And this written code will replace the other completely, right?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't need to go back and clarify what Mayor Hakes is talking about, right?
Yep, we'll just make sure it's all in one
'Cause I
spot.
remember doing the same thing when I built my shed. It was a little bit vague, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's the high point of this? Is it the gable, or is it the point next to the fence,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So clarifying that would be good.
and where that height is determined from, back a curb or grade at the backyard or what? So that's something else we want to
Yeah,
clarify,
it's,
because on these homes that, you know, they've got that backyard sloped,
Mm-hmm.
if you do back a curb, they can be 40 feet at the neighbor and, you know,
yep.
24 feet at the curb. So that's, those two things, if we can get the language right on those, then I'm good.
Perfect. Yeah, the language now on height measurement is from existing or finished grade, so whichever's more restrictive. So, but yes, we'll make sure those are clear.
I like those clarifications. I think that'll be really helpful and make our lives easier as we have to interpret them. There's a little difference between the slide and the dock, so I just want to draw attention to that. On the dock, you've got the half acre or smaller, and then half acre to 2 acre. There it says 1 to 2
Oh,
acres.
yeah.
So you're missing like, well, what about a 3/4 acre?
Yes.
Just make sure that the dock reads there. I'd recommend, just to make our lives easier, in case someone comes in at a 2.00 acres and they don't know if they fall under 35 or 40, if you do 1 to 1.99, I just think it's a small thing.
There's
but it-
there's an overlap there.
Yeah, there's two
Yeah.
twos and there's
Yeah.
2 ones.
Well,
So if it's
Usually when you have these, we write it out in square footage. So it'll,
perfect. If
it'll
that
have the,
clarifies, as long as there's a 1 foot difference in
Yep.
there,
Yep.
then I think that makes it just really clear. I think these are great. Do we have any feedback from Planning Commission on our revisions to their revisions?
we wouldn't take it back unless you wanted us to take it back.
I just didn't know if they had expressed, I don't necessarily need it to go back to them for review. I just didn't know if they had general feedback, having seen this.
Yeah, I would assume that they would be comfortable with it.
Some of it's more conservative and some is less. so-
Yeah.
Especially the height and setback one and the consideration for the commercial industrial.
One question that's come up is design standards. Do you want us to include some basic design standards? Accessory buildings are a little tough because you don't want to make it so restrictive that somebody can't go out and buy a 200 square foot shed and put it in their backyard and without decorating it. A lot of times that's what CCNRs are for, but we're open to whatever
Okay, as
the
much
council
as
wants.
I would love to say yes to this, and my parents were in a situation similar to this, and they would have loved design standards behind their house, that's a hard one for me to start slapping design standards on somebody's outbuilding, as much as I would like to. I don't feel like that's really, in my opinion,
I'm in the same
something
boat.
that I really think that we need to,
Yeah, I'd love to say, they need to be,
Pursue.
we saw some cities that said they had to be at least the same standard as the primary home. But I think that ship has sailed. Like, I don't feel the need to legislate if a small accessory building has stucco. Like,
I think that
I don't
is,
wanna go there.
I think that is an ACC responsibility within a functioning HOA
well,
personally.
and with respect to our culture and our history, I certainly, this breaks farmers and vehicle storage, and so I don't feel like that's the right thing to do.
Unless we
either.
make them do a barn, then if this,
They can make a fancy
Yeah.
barn, and I'll be all
We may-
for that.
just apply Highway 89 guidelines to it, Sean, will be good.
That's right. We may have a couple of simple things, like one thing I have got a concern about recently is reflectivity with metal roofs that aren't
Oh.
painted. And it looks like one of those solar farms. I mean, so some basic things like that, I
Oh,
think
you
we can
saw my neighbors?
include.
You make a good point with that, and I think about the scenario with my parents. The neighbor agreed to plant some trees. They were just garbage trees that half of them died anyway because I think the metal building was so hot. But it was an attempt to mitigate some of the heat and
Yeah.
reflectivity. One other thought is, and I know that people don't like to have windows on a side of their building that they don't like, but if I'm looking at a wall, a building, I would appreciate a little aesthetic. So talk about the windows just from a,
Well, the only thing, if you guys, when you drive down 1600 South and you're going to Spanish 400 North, We crossed the railroad tracks, there's the new subdivision
One
there.
on the
You
south
pass it-
side.
Yeah, the south
Yep.
side, he had it steel framed for probably 2 years. And they just finished it, and you look at the one behind Shree Kilpax, and this is standard and typical in commercial development, and it's all over Springville and Spanish Fork, and everywhere, that they'll specify this development won't allow steel buildings.
Yeah.
Because they're cheaper and they appraise less and stuff, and, you know, you got concrete and block and all this other stuff.
And a HOA.
Yeah, and so the only thing I would consider and would be open to discussing is not the steel building.
Yeah.
Pre-manufactured steel building facade. Because when you look at it, it looks like you pulled it out of a commercial thing and stuck it
It's
in there.
very industrial.
And maybe
yeah.
the language could be, you know, residential finished materials and not specifying stucco or stone or brick or whatever, just residential finished materials and not architectural metal from a standpoint
Okay,
of-
just to clarify, so that I understand what you're saying, you're talking about industrial metal versus like a powder-coated metal?
That's right.
Okay.
No,
Or
no,
can you
powder coat
explain
is
that
on
a little
both
bit?
of them.
Okay.
So there's different types of metal panels. So when you buy a pre-manufactured building, they'll come with what's called a PBU panel. And so then they all look the same, right? They wrap them with that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they put it on the roof and it all looks the same. They might just change the color. And that's in a commercial development, which is standard where it's allowed. So they have a steel structure, they wrap it with the steel, it all comes as a building package. And that's the only thing, when you do that and all these, and like you guys have all seen the one there because you can't miss it. And if you drive by the I.R. Allen, you can't miss the one there.
Yeah.
You know, the people, for a great example, is on the corner of I.R. Allen, 1600 South and 800 West on the southeast corner. They did the same thing, but they stuccoed over it, which, in my opinion, solves the
On
problem.
the southeast corner, yeah, and it's
Instead of
and it's
putting
shorter.
the sheet metal on it that looks like you pulled it out of a commercial place, they just stuccoed it. Looks great.
Yeah, I like that because my concern with just outlying metal buildings in general would be, you know, a citizen might come in and cry hardship because they can't afford a nice building, but they can afford a metal building. But if we can allow them to build the building inexpensive with cheap, but then facade it with something that looks
Yeah,
better.
my garage at my house is a steel building,
Yeah,
but I just didn't put the sheet metal on it, right?
Yeah.
If I had done that there, you guys
Steel
would be like,
frame.
there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So it's just, you can facade it with whatever you want. It's just, it might cost a little bit more, but on a smaller building, it's not even significant enough if you're gonna build the building. I'm not really sure how to word that yet. I'm not,
Yeah.
alls I'm saying is that's the only
like that,
thing that I
too.
would love to make sure we don't have those all over the place.
So we don't have big metal walls.
Would you have, one of the things we were looking at with Jessica, would there be an exemption in the rare case that you have somebody that's actually farming and needs it for farm equipment, or would we not worry about that?
what about acreage?
On a certain size acreage or something?
on a
'Cause
certain size
if
acreage.
that's the case, if they need a barn that big, then they have tractors and trailers and all that stuff, so they need a fairly,
Which
a
they're
perfect
probably-
example is the one behind Brophy's,
Yeah.
right there on Main Street. And it's big, and luckily there's a lot of trees, and the other one is Brent Benson built off 900 South and 150 East.
Right.
And there's enough trees around, you can't see it, but that thing is gargantuous, and
Yeah.
it's all metal. So if there's a way just to, and then he moved up to Triple Crown and built the same size building, but facaded it, and it looks beautiful
Yeah.
with
But
stucco or
if you
siding.
did that
whatever.
with a minimum lot size, I mean, what comes to mind is even Greenbelt Properties is a minimum of what, 5 acres, 6 acres?
Yeah.
Because what's farming, right?
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
lot
it'd
of-
have to be like probably an
yeah.
acreage thing.
Yeah.
And a certain setback from the street.
Yeah.
If it's like 6 acres and it's 300 feet, 400 feet off the main road, I don't know.
Okay.
Now I'm just
Yeah.
throwing stuff out. But that's the only facade that doesn't fit in our
Yeah,
small town, big heart.
I agree. So we're 95% there. I'll
But maybe I'm
work
crazy.
some
I think so.
tweaks and
I
we'll
think it's
bring it
great.
back.
Yeah.
Well, I
What?
mean, my dream bubble is all the buildings look beautiful. I mean, I love the language that says, you know, if it matches, it's strongly encouraged that it match the aesthetic of the primary home. I just don't feel
That's a little
comfortable
too vague.
making that rule.
Yeah.
I don't think, you could do that.
I don't
'cause
think
there's
we can do it.
100 things you could do that would look good. I think it's just the one, if you
Yeah.
eliminated that one,
Mhm.
then we don't care if they put wood siding or hardy siding or brick or.
Well, I don't care about a 10 by 15 crappy metal one, though. Like, if there's a compromise somewhere in here, I'm willing to do it because my own preference is not for ugly stuff.
Not what?
But not for ugly, like,
Oh,
I don't
right,
want
right,
ugly
right,
stuff,
right.
but if there's a middle ground that's still I don't know what it is either. If you can come up with some verbiage that lets us control a little bit so that we don't have eyesores and
Really
giant
the big
eyesores in
ones.
people's backyards or reflective things or
There's also the
It's gotta be
combination of
quantifiable.
sorry.
Go ahead. I'm done.
There's also the combination of a previous issue that I don't know that we ever resolved it, but the shipping containers. There's potential of people stacking shipping containers and making barns out of them, and how does this apply?
It looks
Could
just
we-
like
I think
that
it'll
sheet
be the
metal.
same.
Could we just say an
the same.
exterior of sheet metal? Would that cover it? It's like, I'm in the same boat. I think it's too prescriptive of a government to come in and say, this is what your backyard
Have to do.
has to look like.
And we're
But-
allowing shipping for use. I mean, we
For specialty uses. but-
Well,
To bring it back.
Yeah,
We'll
we
get
no-
gotta
that
bring
one
it
back
back.
for
We
you.
have a big, oh,
got
I talked
we
to,
got a problem, yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna have
But
to-
overall, I'll just put in my 2 cents. I really like this final version. It just felt sticky and messy to apply this all the way around, and I think this is a really good compromise, so.
Okay, we'll tweak it a little bit and then bring it back. That's it? Anything else on
Yep.
it?
Now
You
you
want
gotta
more
buy a break.
language? You want us to keep talking? or-
Yeah.
Let's keep talking.
Got 8 more minutes.
Bio break.
I'm gonna go find a pen, so I don't have to borrow one from
Okay,
the
you got a few minutes. Should we figure out how to get, or is there something else we need on the PowerPoint?